Okay, so Ozan, welcome and thank you for joining
My honor.
the MindWealth founder, innovator, CEO, and business leader series. Thank you so much for joining this call. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So Ozan, you're the global head of multi-asset strategies at a major investment bank. Uh, the idea behind this call is to try and get some deeper insight into how you think about the markets, how you think about your views on trading or predicting market prices, and just a general idea for viewers to get a deeper insight into how to go about managing their own portfolio, so they can think about things from a more broader and a more informed point of view. So, Ozan, you're a friend, a leader in this in your business in which you do, someone whom I've known for almost a decade. You studied at premier institutes like Harvard. You're an ambassador to a prominent sports franchise. And last but not the least, as I said earlier, you run a large global business within a leading investment bank. Ozan, your job takes you far and wide. You've known to have been photographed with the occasional world leader and central bank head, not to mention probably the greatest tennis player of all time. You're an influencer, but not a typical social media influencer. You influence the decisions made by some of the world's largest funds, and therefore the outcome of billions of dollars put to work or pulled out of the financial markets on a weekly basis. People in some of the world's most active hedge funds, mutual funds, other real money funds pay heed to your ideas. Those who don't often appreciate when your calls come true, which I sense is 75 to 80% of the time, though you might argue a higher number. My first question: how did you develop your skills at predicting the markets? Did a switch turn on? Was it a revolution or a gradual evolution over the past 2 decades?
First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Rohit. I'm thinking I'm going to really enjoy this. Your questions got me thinking. It wasn't a switch. It was a gradual process. I think one thing that really helped me is I've been through all parts of our sector. I started in research. I've done trading. I've done sales. Now it's almost bringing everything together. And I really do have a passion for what I do. Even when I was in college, before I knew that I would be a trader or an investment banker, I used to tell my parents I want economics. I have a love to dislike relationship with the Economist magazine. And all I knew was I wanted my job to be connected to that magazine, but hopefully to be able to call things 6 months or 9 months before Economist and Financial Times thought about these things. And even when I was a decade earlier when we met, my real passion is to call political economy. My real passion is not necessarily this or that balance sheet, but I have both fundamental inclination, a gut feel, say whatever you want, on what's going to happen with countries, what's going to do better in 2 years, 2 months, 5 years, economies, and also I do like to take bets on these things. So otherwise, I could have been just a researcher, writes for professors, etc., etc. And it's one thing that really helped also was the world is getting more and more interconnected, political and economic, making those calls becoming very, very important. One example, even though, as you know, I'm now known more in the markets for thinking, waiting for Western inflation is waiting for Godot. 15, 20 years ago, when I was more of an only EM person, I thought some of these countries needed more inflation. When it was very, very in to talk about these bands, all the countries want to become Argentinas of the world. Remember those days?
Yes.
Early 1990s, University of Chicago. Maybe because of my background, growing up in a country with hyperinflation, etc., etc. We don't want hyperinflation, but we want some inflation. I thought all this pressure on the currency, on these countries, currency bans, IMF strict regimes, was wrong, was a straitjacket. And back at the time, especially in my firm run by a University of Chicago researcher, that was like a taboo. But even though I was a young researcher, I wasn't that shy to politely but surely write about those things. Then 10 years down the road, I started sensing all these countries may become more and more like Japans of the world. That's because of technology, Amazonization, productivity, whatever you want to say. Even 6-7 years before, I sensed that all these trading floors waiting for normalization, 3-4% inflation rates were waiting for Godot. On both sides, two very extreme calls. I wasn't shy to write about them, bet about them, and then put my intellectual capital behind it.
Okay. Perfect. Ozan, while your current role is not a trader, as I mentioned earlier, you're the head of a global multi-asset strategy sales coverage role. Your market trading calls are clearly better than many famous traders. I say this based on observation, based on what others tell me, and so on. My question is, what informs your overall decision-making process?
It's almost like I'm like a nice human, quote unquote, robot in a way. There's a very a method to my chaos. You know, you said even at the beginning, I'm a big Federer fan. I think I want to be one of the Federers of my sector, but I'm very Nadal in certain aspects of my character and day-to-day job. Every day, I come in for 10 to 20 years. When I ran the call meetings or when I was part of the meetings, I do my meetings. I listen to different traders, different researchers, try to get a feel of what they're thinking. Nowadays, especially in the past 3-4 Trump Brexit days, I always have these headphones on, listening to Bloomberg, listening to CNBC, not necessarily because I quote-unquote respect everything that's said on there, but there are some very true indicators, very reverse indicators. I try to bring everything to get charts. To me, charts are also very important. I get this question a lot. It's not just fundamentals. It's not just charts. It's not just research. It's not just trading. I really, in my own art to science way, try to bring everything together. I don't want to be known only as a contrarian either, because I'm not. That also, life also taught me sometimes you need to go with the herd. What I call the headline effect. Sometimes you really need to believe that even though everybody is calling for Trump impeachment, that headline will come, but it's all pricing. It's all pricing. Not necessarily. You need to feel the pulse. You need to feel that. You need to feel when a lot of the market will go and chase the trade, and when you really feel that people are looking at the wrong way, they're about to be caught. They're about to be caught offside. Now you can look at positioning surveys for that. You can listen to, you can make a lot of calls and try to get a good judgment on it. You can pick on a few people, as I said, the right ones and the wrong ones. And then you bring, in a way, you bring everything together. This AI world also starting to help me. I was a little bit hesitant about, robots, the usual cliches 5-10 years before, will they take our jobs, blah, blah, blah. I grew up I grew over that very fast. Now, if anything, I need to. I start to even not to manipulate, but to feel what the robot will do. Yesterday, big headline: Chile APEC meeting cancelled. It's cancelled because sadly Chile has much bigger issues than holding an APEC meeting. But first, all the robots thought, it may have been cancelled because China-USA calls are going wrong. Well, you may just say, that's such an idiotic thing to say and ignore, or you can sense if a robot or if all the AIs believe that in that second, what they will do. So I thought that immediately they would rush for the gold, for yen, etc. And once the news sink in, you would reverse out of it. So those kind of things help me make these calls.
Excellent. So a combination of pretty much everything, figuring out what the robots will do, sensing it, a bit of technical analysis, positioning.
I believe in art and science. I really believe forehand and backhand, art and science. It really needs to. It's obviously easier said than done. But again, if your viewers want to hear me out as a mentor, I mean, honestly, that's where I believe my success comes from. again, I told you, I did research, I did trading, I did sales, I'm a manager. Another humility. I mean, I talk to quote unquote big gods of this job. In the most successful ones, I also sense that modesty, humility. You have to know when things are going your way. You have to know when things are not going your way. What I really hate, whether you're the head of research, head of multi-billion CIO, blah, 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 acknowledge when you're wrong on that 20% in your why you did wrong. When can you turn right again? Don't shy away from self-acknowledgement. I mean, don't hide under the desk either, but you know what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Be brave and come out and try to learn from your mistakes. Otherwise, again, I'm trying to give very day-to-day examples. Otherwise, you can continue to believe this inflation will print 4% one day, that US 10-year will print 4% that one day. It hasn't happened for the past 10 years. Then after a while, you're like this clock who shows the time right once every 24 hours.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been calling for a big crash for the last 20 years. Every 10 years, they get it right and they write a book, or they write a book and they get it right one way. One usually follows the other. So I see your point. There's no point repeating a prevailing mantra like a robot, and with the knowledge that eventually you'll get it right and it'll be sensational, but then bulk of the time you're basically wrong. Okay, Ozan, next question is the very concept of analysis, study, the systematic stuff people do, even research to an extent, though I'm a big fan of research, don't get me wrong, is it kind of pointless in terms of really making the right calls in the market and to be a successful trader based on your own calls and your observation of major players in the market who make calls?
It would be harsh if I say that. I mean, for me, research is a big part of, again, back to tennis.
Of course.
Research is my racket. It has research, chartists. These are all part of my racket. You have to know, without breaking too many hearts, you have to go with which rackets to go with. And you need to make sure that you don't call your reverse indicator to their faces, so that you continue to get their feedback as well. But no, it's not pointless. It's if you only go with your gut, it's not gonna take you much places either.
Let me rephrase my question. Not so much about you and your view only. It's in terms of your observation of how some of the world's biggest fund managers, etc., work. To what extent do they rely on their own gut feel, their own sense of the market being just overbought or oversold, their own sense of too many people leaning in a particular direction, which is a different way of saying it's overbought or oversold, positioning, and so on, versus pure analytics, versus things like market data that comes out on a regular basis and so on. Yeah, I mean, I just want to get a sense of what percentage is, have we totally moved towards calling political economy, as you said earlier, predicting Trump, or is it like 25% analysis and 75% political predictions, gut feel, positioning sense, or vice versa? I just want to get that sense for our viewers.
For the 6 months to 1 year view, let's forget the 5-10 year for a second. I think still analytics is very, very important. So people should continue to hire these quants, these researchers. They should have their army if they wish. They should rely on only 2-3 people if they wish, whatever their ammunition is. But for the turns, you do need that positioning sense, gut, etc., etc. So for the big picture, for the medium-term, long-term view, analytics is a must. Research quants are getting more and more part of the game, unavoidable. But for the turning points, I would never let go of my positioning sense, my gut feel, etc., etc.
So I guess
these things also, there is no one Rohit answer. Like it just, again, maybe it's experience. It almost comes to me.
Yeah.
This very, like, you follow me every day. like this very recent, it's a minor deal, but Fed yesterday, I sensed that people were getting all of a sudden more hawkish than the Fed himself. It's these things that you hear from the television, from one client that I know that can get carried away. Then I start smelling things.
Got it.
My researcher feeling shaky about his call, etc., etc. And then it comes like you can either be, hedge yourself, shy away, and not put the intellectual capital out there, or you can be, brave, confident, and put it out there. Or 4 weeks ago, I'm in a room in Tokyo, about to go to my meetings, on the news wires. Boris Johnson had made the mistake of calling Merkel at 8 a.m. in the morning. Supposedly the call had went horrible, blah, blah, blah. China, LeBron James had made a gaffe. China has pulled off NBA. On both our two binary events now, China trade deal and Brexit, we were hopeless. October 8th, a nice day in Tokyo. I felt like this is all too much. I'm not an insider in the Trump White House. I wasn't a part of the Merkel-Boris call, but I just felt that we were getting too carried away, too pessimist, and that come Friday night, they would make a way to send us home with a better feel. And I wrote about it, and it became one of the more famous calls. Another thing, before all these things, because you were with me, shoulder to shoulder. Whatever it takes moment, 2012, history, maybe why I'm still in this room. I could be in some other room, but not in a financial room with you, maybe. He said whatever it takes, Draghi did. Why was he able to say it? Because he was given political right. The whole world, Rohit, we were sharing an office even. The whole world, even some of our research colleagues that you know very well, thought that Europe would break up, that she would be trapped, that she was out of her skids. My gut feel was this is way too big than your quantitative analysis. It's very obvious that Europe is a monetary union, it's not a fiscal union, it's wrong in the setup, so Lego on paper should fall, but this is not Lego, this is a much bigger political game, and if Draghi's old world still remember the war, they would hold this together, and I thought she, at that time very, very strong leader Merkel, would hold this together, and that was like, honestly, 95% of the market was against me. Some very respected journalists, think tankers like Wolfgang Munchau, December 2011, the guy who had the guts to write, maybe he's also brave, but I never make him forget it. In December 2011, he wrote, Euro has 10 days left.
Well, I remember that.
The whole world remembers that now, sadly for him. So I went against it, and then in May 2012, our friend Draghi made the famous Bumblebee speech. So those are the, those are the kind of things I rely on. Okay.
That is something I think most people would really appreciate in the sense of when things look extremely dark, when everyone says everything is failing, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't fail, essentially. And this was one of those mixed extreme times when I remember, I think Greek government or Italian government bonds were all over the place. Yields had shot up. People were talking about redenomination of debt. It was indeed a fascinating time to be in Europe and in the UK, in the center of things. And you made a good call. You made a great call, actually. Yep. On the matter of calls, what are the most important economic indicators that you focus on, or that you think are the most economic indicators that people should focus on? And how has that changed over the years, if so?
On that one as well, look, very concrete examples. 2-3 years ago, all of a sudden, people switched from non-farm payrolls to average hourly earnings, announced at the same time. Why? Because we were really believing in this wage inflation. Economy was getting so close to full employment that wage inflation had to go up. So, non-farm payrolls was a monthly noise. That's what people believed. Look at average hourly inflation. Look at then things didn't really go there. As you know, inflation stayed low for various reasons that we don't need to go into now. Then all of a sudden, and because of partial employment, whatever the reason was, unemployment and non-farm payrolls continue to tighten. Very hopeful levels for the growth bulls, rate bears, though they started sticking to the other one. So again, it's almost like a game. You have to feel where the guy's pain is. He almost knows that he's not getting what he wants from the average hourly earning, so he shifts to focus back to non-farm payroll. Employment cost index, ECI. Bernanke, when he was the big manager running the show, one day, even in our growth conference, I think, he said, ECI is the key indicator I'm looking at. Boom, everybody started focusing on ECI. So these are the things I kind of follow. Now, these days, China. I mean, people believe, but really don't believe they're 6.5% growth levels, but people feel that they're having a problem. So tomorrow, even though it's a non-farm payroll, ISM, double day, big decker day, blah, 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 for me, even more important is the China PMI, China cash-in PMI. Why? Because our friend Powell, again, seems to unfortunately made the gaffe. He talked about a pause, but data in the past 24 hours have been deteriorating in US, but especially in China. First PMI came horrible. So while the poor guy sleeps, if the China cash-in comes horrible, whatever the NFP may throw, he may be in trouble. So you make people you make people focus on that. Or let's take it away from economics. Polls. England, we had way too many elections for my taste in England the last few years. 2017, every single pollster was wrong, with the exception of Survation. Correct. I don't know who runs Survation. He's not my uncle, but I know that the Survation got it right. So I looked into why Survation got it right. For whatever reason, they had the better pulse about youth. It's a micro detail, but it's important. And getting youth is very important because youth is feeling uneasy about leave, blah, blah, blah. So they're starting to participate a lot more in the process. They're registering. So these days, when everybody sends around again because of the election, 6, 7, 8 polls every day, I make people focus on Survation. So these are the things that I try to, shine, wave my hand more convincingly among the crowd. And not just the legendary name, not just Rohits of the world who knows me for 10, 20 years, but even the newcomers start to notice. I write different things. I don't just talk about 9 polls. I say, hey, this is different. This is why this is different. Watch it. These are the reasons. Again, last night, backing my point, the second most famous political show host in London, Peston, talked about the fact that in the last 24 hours, a record number of people registered below the ages of 35 and 25. I added that to the Survation poll, so people read it. That, look, in 2 months' time, Survation may be completely wrong, but I bring something interesting to the table. And that's why people
absolutely
listen to me and not 100 different people.
So message economic indicators which are important can change over time. You gave a couple of examples of that happening. And what those things are and when certain things work, it's important to kind of note it down or remember it and then draw back on it at the time needed.
Precisely. Also, Roy, I mean, it's a bit of a choice. My passion is to follow politics and economics all the time. A little bit sad for my family, etc., in a nice way. So even before Sundays became Mondays in 2008, Lehman announcement, City announcement, etc., already Saturdays and Sundays. Even when I was in college, when I was even at markets, when I was following Thatcher's demise, what happened to John Major in 1992? I was in college. I wasn't even in the market. There was no Twitter. There was no smartphone. But at nights, reading newspapers, I thought about these things. So I almost have a innate, natural passion advantage with these things. Because nobody paid me to be excited about the 1992 ERM fallout of
Yeah.
pound. I was interested in it. My professor didn't, order me to be interested in it. I was interested in it. And in a way, thankfully, I made that part of a big essential part of my day-to-day job.
Wonderful. Ozan, what words of wisdom would you offer to people who wish to manage their own wealth, their own trading, and are tired of advice from, so-called experts, talking heads on TV, famous gurus who, get it wrong, arguably more often than right? Big investment houses, their reports, and so on and so forth, that describe concepts extremely well and brilliantly over a long-term basis, but don't necessarily get all those core turning points right. What should the average Joe, so to speak, do to manage her or his own wealth? I should say average Joe or Jane.
I mean, already we gave, I think, hopefully a lot of hints.
Yeah.
I think my last answer was a good one for the link. I know it sounds easy, but if you do this only because you're getting paid to do it, or, you don't have to be a professional, if you're personally trading it, if you're only in it, quote unquote, to make money, desperately or not, I'm not sure my game is your game. And obviously, I'm doing this because I love it and I get paid for something I love. But I have a passion for it beyond making money being the only means. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
That's one. What I tell to all my associates and analysts from day one, whether they're in sales, trading, or research, have a view. If you're in this because you have some passion for markets, economics, etc., have a view. It doesn't have to be right. Don't have a view just to have a view. Pick your point. You don't have to be like me from day one, have a dollar-yen view, Merkel view, Yellen view, five-year view. Whatever your pick is, elaborate it. What did we say? Be modest. If you get it wrong, think about why you got it wrong, and then take it from there. Another thing, it's working for me. I mean, I understand everybody's different, but I come in almost like an MBA player every day, a different white page. I listen to, I almost watch the market. It's like I watch the painting, and then why a central bank press conference turns can give you so much hints. Like yesterday, Powell gets questioned about a hike. The whole world knows, inshallah, that he's not going to hike anytime soon. But the way he answered, destroyed what was supposedly an hawkish cut, because consciously or not, he let out such a belief in, and I agree with him, obviously, on how inflation threat should be significant for him to even think about the hike. People said, oh, this guy's not going to hike anytime soon. So they jumped on it. So for me, this is the way it works. I need to be in it for 10 hours, watch the game all the time, and make my call. So I would need to adjust my game now. If I'm just in an island, nicely with Rohit or with my family, just look at the markets every 8 hours, every 6 hours. I'm not sure if it would work for me. I would need to adjust my game a little bit. But at the moment, that's what works for me. But also, again, there is not one magic formula, but I try to never get lost in the trees. Even though it may sound contradictory, but it's not. Even though my job is to follow the markets 7 to 7, blah, 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 on the trading floor, every year, I do have a big view. Like this year is about the tax reform. This year is about the US election. This year is about Lagarde being different than Draghi. And then, trying to make sure that you don't have 10 of those big views in a year because you're simply wrong. You only have 2-3 big teams. And then even though day to day, I trade, and advice, I try to make sure that I don't forget those 2-3 teams for the year. I think that's that's very valuable advice, actually.
Got it.
Even for next year, for example, it will be. I mean, we talk about this all the time, but let your viewers hear. Next year's big call will be US election, UK election. It's a very different world if the consensus happens, what is it? In England, less important election, but still, if Boris and Farage coalition win, if we have some kind of a deal, followed by 9 months later, Trump is clearly the favorite. If Trump also wins, that's a very different world than either if Boris stumbles, some kind of Corbyn coalition, or even more importantly, in the more important election, now it's clear that Biden most probably won't be the nominee.
Mm-hmm.
If either Warren or Biden's Bernie, somebody like that, a real, left populism, right populism, a real quote unquote alternative to Trump, if he or she wins the election, the whole world changes. Then we get more hopes for Godot, maybe some inflation, fiscal stimulus. So now that's my big game. Greens, some Corbyn coalition in England, Warren. If one of the three happens, game may change. Whatever I believe day to day, that's the point that I make the big calls. If none of that happens, then same old game. We complained about 1%, we complained about 0.1%, but volatility low, inflation low, risk parity works, etc., etc. So those are the two big scenarios I have in my mind, and those are the two big calls I'm going to make according to how these things play out.
Okay. Ozan, that makes complete sense. That's your 2020 call and that's your 2020 pivot point. Got it. Understood. Now, in an era where probably, I don't know, you know the number better than me, 60% of traded volumes are driven by machines, algos. Do you feel that financial markets have become more or less perfect? Do machines make fewer mistakes versus top traders, or do they just make different kinds of mistakes?
Different kinds of mistakes, but they do make a lot of mistakes. The pound crash, I forgot now. I think it was like 2017, right in the middle of my New York dinner when it went to 118. One of the first times the TY went to 180 3-4 years ago. These are quote-unquote mistakes. But again, similar to what I told you half an hour ago, if I want to stop Christophe Colomb, good luck. I mean, it's coming. It came. So they are the quote-unquote new masters of the universe. But we will need, this is my life philosophy overall. If I were out of the university now, I would learn to code. I'm telling my son and daughter who already have a passion for these things to, have a, coding mentality. Even if I didn't tell them, their schools too, etc., etc. But those machines, those coders, they will need somebody to program these. They will need somebody who tell the right source to go into those machines. So I'm still confident that even though there will be more and more machines around me, first of all, I will be able to dance with those machines. And second of all, I will be able to work with those machines. So answer to your question, I'm going to go with consensus. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year down the road, there will be even more machines and there will be less human. But the humans left may be even more important than they are today, because they're going to have to program those machines even better, and that they will be even more bigger part of their part of our sector. These things, by the way, are already happening in Deutsche Banks, in Goldman's, in BlackRock's. People are smelling the coffee and trying to adjust.
Absolutely.
So honestly, much more in peace answer than maybe I would have given to you 3-4 years before. I'm in peace with the way the world is going.
So it would be fair to say, Ozan Tarman, brother to the machines. Should I call you Brobot? Maybe I think that could be a new catchword for the future.
Not
robot.
More of a heart.
Brobot.
More of a pulse.
Brobot, I said. B-R-O-B-O-T.
What did you say?
Brobot. B-R-O-B-O-T. Brobot.
Not bad at all. People used to call me. Remember, people used to call me a machine. So in a way, I do get that concentration. Even 10 years ago, before the Bloomberg TVs and headphones, blah, blah, blah. Again, back to my MBA analogy, I think it's very, very important. Again, there is no one formula, but to me, this is important. Otherwise, if I were in corporate finance, if I were in M&A, blah, 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 then it would be different. Long lunches, trying to go after the next deal. Sometimes that deal doesn't even happen. You spend your 3 months, 6 months in a company, in a country, it doesn't happen. some people are really turned on by that. I wouldn't be. Our game, I mean, now thanks to this Trump world, maybe when I'm done with you, even the last hour will be different. Every hour is different. Every day is different. You need to bring your A game. Again, Michael Jordan, A game every single time you play. Much more easier said than done. But that's the type of discipline I have. So I'm not doing it because somebody orders me to do it. I'm doing it because, that, you know what I'm saying, that experience, I always evolved to be that.
I can't help asking this question. Wasn't planning to, but since we talked about bots and machines and so on, social media, things like Twitter.
Very important.
I was going to ask, how important is it to you? And I sense it's becoming increasingly important just to get a sense of the thought stream in a way at a particular point of time, maybe even turning points. But I don't have a great feel on that in terms of how exactly it plays into decision making.
Twitter is like a much bigger Bloomberg chat world. Again, you need to pick the right people. You need to definitely make sure you don't follow only ones you agree with. You need to feel your reverse indicators as well. Let's see if life, these are discussions that you and I have almost every week anyway, but let's see if life throws me that ball. But I really feel that even if I weren't, of course, being on the trading floor is important. Of course, trading floors are now a bit different as well, but bank trading floor helps. When you have a job like me, rates people talk to you, FX people talk to you, EM people talk to you, it's quote-unquote easier to get the pulse. But I really believe, even if you left me in Bodrum on a beach, with still my passion, I swim, but I come back to talk to the market, to see the markets, to feel what people talk about in the Twitter, etc., etc. I would be able to call these markets pretty correctly. So even if I were in my own fund, some fund with 2-3 people, but the right social media, TV connections, etc., in this day and age, I would have the advantage that I didn't have on an American house trading floor in 1995. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Makes complete sense, Ozan. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I think this call...
It's been a wonderful pleasure for me too. One final thought maybe. I mean, now the next challenge would be almost like to go to the other side of the Bloomberg. Either as a decision maker, it can be government, it can be intra-government, etc., etc., because these things are now also interlinked. Thank God, because you know about my integrity. There is no more these lunches that you had and many other people didn't have, etc., etc. Now everybody hears the news from our good friend Big D Trump at the same time. But you need to, after everything that I tried to describe as my recipe, as the decision maker as well, whether a central banker person, finance minister, etc., etc., you have to be connected to the market makers and make those right decisions. When to go for an issuance, when to go for an intervention, when to build up reserves, when to, So it would be, for me, if God gives me that chance, one nice last challenge would be almost to go to the other side of the Bloomberg and to dance with the market makers from the other side.
Well, on that note, Ozan, we've known people who've made the transition to finance ministers, no names on this call. So I wish you all the best in that potential transition, somewhere in broader Europe, perhaps. And all the very, very best. Pleasure chatting with you.
Pleasure.
Pleasure chatting with you. Hi. Thank you for watching this conversation with a financial markets expert, a guru who understands the DNA of trading, a global head in investment banking, and our friend Ozan Tarman. Trading can be a winner-takes-all, hard and ruthless business, and we're all looking for that competitive edge. That edge will often be found in unconventional places. Just like Ozan implements an unorthodox forehand and backhand strategy to succeed, so do we. Here at MindWealth, we believe that success is a holistic game. We unite 3 areas of mastery: discovery and acquisition of career purpose, growing and protecting your financial wealth, and evolving your spiritual health. I'll go on a limb here and say that you've got the first two parts covered. But what about the last one? Spiritual health. Did you know that a major aspect of spiritual health is getting in touch with your deeper or your higher self? The deeper self that some would call intuition, gut feeling, or instinct. Regardless of where you are at the moment and how many millions you make per year, the endless cycle of making more and more money is a bottomless pit that can never be filled. While you're seemingly on a roll, a little voice will inevitably creep in and say, "Is this it? Isn't there anything more to life? Something more meaningful, more fulfilling?" I know, because I've been there. I've felt the feeling that no matter how much I made, it was never enough. Let me tell you, once you hear that voice, it's only gonna get louder and louder. Spiritual health is a crucial, often missing and neglected aspect of success. This is exactly why we offer you tools to access your spirituality, which will not only give you peace of mind, but also help make you a better trader. Imagine having a sixth sense and always being one step ahead of the competition, especially if they are completely oblivious to the power of the spiritual self, or even if they are fully aware of this spiritual power, they haven't figured out the way to tap it. Imagine living a well-balanced life while making more money than ever before. If that sounds appealing to you, MindWealth proudly presents America's greatest hidden treasure, Kevin Blackwell. We deliver you the first episode in the Evolve with Masters series. In this mind-blowing and spirit-moving episode, Kevin shares eternal wisdom and universal truth. We will dig deeper into the following topics and ideas. What is the question you should answer if you want to realize who you are and why you've been created? The essence of different ascended masters and the nature of their relationship with Source or God. Kevin's experience of the Buddha and the mysteries he contains within himself. The word of the day in these troubled times that we find ourselves in. Please click on the link in the description below and watch the premiere episode of Evolve with Masters with Kevin Blackwell. We believe and hope you will enjoy it.